it's very hard to have a desire within yourself for something when you're very satisfied sometimes. It's a lot harder sometimes to have a desire then. It's something that's beyond you in particular. Sometimes it's hard to have a desire then, unless there's some level of dissatisfaction. So generally what happens in the sixth sphere, and the way spirits, celestial spirits, have been helping spirits in the sixth sphere traditionally, has been that they wait for a sixth sphere spirit to be dissatisfied. So this is what, like, my friend John did with, say, let me just think of someone you would know, Socrates, right? He experienced a dissatisfaction in the sixth sphere eventually, and John went to him many, many times. And he kept sort of getting to the point where John would go to him and say, have you thought about this sort of thing? And this was over the last 2,000 years, right? So there was a 2,000-year period of which it took like a solid 500 years, right, for Socrates to listen to John. He would feel dissatisfied. John would go to him because he could feel the dissatisfaction. John would talk to him, and Socrates would go, "Why is he talking to me about this for? I don't make any sense out of that. That doesn't make any sense to me." Ignored it. And then he gets a feeling of dissatisfaction again, and then John goes to him instantly, as soon as the dissatisfaction is, has a chat with him again. Fascinating chat. And then John goes away and he's going, why did John go? By now he knows John, John name, and why did John come and talk to me again this time? And why did it take 100 years between the last time I saw him and this time? And then, of course, I don't really agree with what he said. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So, I just go on finding another thing to be interested in. Another 100 years goes past. Feel dissatisfied again. Now the dissatisfaction is happening probably quicker as well. So for Socrates, there was about 5 cycles of that before he actually listened and actually decided to make a decision to do something about it.
A lot like us, isn't it?
Mm. Yeah, and once he thought, by the time he got to the last one, he goes, there's something in this, there's got to be something in this. I can see John, he's a very powerful spirit. He knows what he's talking about. Everything he says is logical. Everything he says is with love. He has more love than I do. There's something in the love because I like his company. I wish I had his company more often because, you feel loved by the person, so you want their company more often. I wish I had his company more often. I've got to listen to him more because every time I don't listen to him, he wants to go away. A celestial spirit doesn't waste his time talking to a bunch of people who don't want to listen, right? So he goes, when you don't want to listen, he just leaves, He's not offended or anything, but just leaves. Similar to what I've done with many of you, right? So you just go away and wait for the interest to develop again, right? So the interest develops again and they come back and then they go, listen, this is okay, so off they go. And that happened a number of cycles for him. And then there's this sort of, during that period of time, a growing desire, a growing dissatisfaction, as well as a growing desire. I desire the kind of love John has. When I'm in John's company, I feel better. Why do I feel better when I'm in his company? I thought I was a perfect human, yet it feels like now I need his company. Why is that happening? There's all these sort of feelings and thoughts that get triggered from the interaction that the person then goes, I need more of that. I need to find out more what's going on. I need to believe him more.
So more of the more than just I'm not getting knowledge, dissatisfaction.
Correct. But it's an emotional dissatisfaction. Yeah, not just a knowledge dissatisfaction. Yeah. It's very emotional. In fact, it's only the emotional dissatisfaction that causes this to occur. Yeah, if it's just a knowledge dissatisfaction, you just go, I'm going to choose another subject and do that. Yeah, but once you start realising there's a pattern, I have talked to spirits in the sixth sphere who didn't realise there was a pattern until I said there was a pattern. So they'd done that for 10,000 years in this pattern, And I said, can you remember these patterns you've been in? And once I reminded them of the pattern, and I said, that's going to continue, this pattern, unless you realise some other things. And then I've been able to have a conversation with them about it, right? But sometimes you're not even, when you're in the pattern, you're not even realising you're in a pattern. And many of you like that day to day, like you're in a pattern of your relationships and you're in the same pattern, and you do the same thing again, and then you're hoping for a better result, but it's the same pattern, so you're going to get the same result. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So many of you don't realise this is what you're actually doing, and so naturally it's going to be what you do when you pass. It's not going to be any different.